A cold morning, a poor cleaner, a splash of mud. What looked like humiliation became the beginning of a life she never dreamed of, because someone important was watching. If you are yet to subscribe to this channel, you might not hear my voice again. Now let's continue. Amira walked carefully along the roadside, clutching a paper bag of breakfast and a pair of worn cleaning gloves. Her uniform was pressed but tired. Her shoes were losing their fight with the pavement. She moved with purpose. She refused to be late for her shift at Granville Towers. The roar came first, then the glare of a white SUV. The tires sliced through a deep puddle. In one brutal instant, muddy water exploded, drenching Amira from hair to hem. The SUV didn't stop. Its tinted window eased down, revealing a flawlessly styled woman with bright lipstick and colder eyes. Veronica smirked. "Watch where you stand next time," she drawled, and the window glided up as the car surged away. Across the street, a black sedan idled. Inside, Elijah Cole watched everything. The splash, the smirk, the quiet tremble in Amira's lips as she steadied herself. He knew Veronica by reputation. Famous fashion line, infamous pride. What she didn't know was that today, someone who hated silent suffering had witnessed her cruelty. Elijah lifted his phone. "Find out who that girl is," he said. "I want to know everything." Amira slipped through the service entrance of Granville Towers looking like a storm cloud had burst over her alone. The lobby's marble gleamed. Her uniform didn't. Mud streaked her cuffs. Her hair clung damp against her cheeks. Mr. Harris, her supervisor, glanced up from a clipboard and frowned. "You're late, and you're a mess." "I was splashed by a car," Amira said, keeping her gaze down. "I tried to—" "No excuses," he cut in. "We've got VIP walkthroughs. Floors must sparkle." She nodded, swallowing the sting. In the supply room, a few co-workers glanced up, then away. One shook her head. No one offered a towel. No one offered a word. Amira pulled on an old backup uniform from her locker, one size too big, and tied her hair. Mop, bucket, breath steady. She got to work. Across town, in a glass tower that scraped the winter light, Elijah scanned a slim dossier. His assistant slid across the desk. Amira Davich, 23. 2 cleaning jobs, West Pine District. Guardianship of Nora, her younger sister. Mother deceased 2 years prior. A photo smiled up at him. Amira beside a bright-eyed child. "She bends but doesn't break," he murmured. "Do you want me to intervene?" the assistant asked. "Not yet," Elijah said. "Let's see who she is when no one's looking." High above the river, Veronica adjusted a gold necklace in the mirrored wall of her penthouse. Her phone buzzed with stylists, influencers, brand partners, her kingdom of glass and curated praise. On camera, she sparkled. Off camera, her smile thinned. "The coffee's tepid," she snapped. "Replace the barista." Her assistant, Casey, nodded too quickly. Veronica took a slow sip of green smoothie. "That girl was standing too close to the road," she said, casual as a paper cut. "She should be grateful I didn't run over her toes." Across town, Amira scrubbed fingerprints from brass elevator trim until she could see her reflection. Tired eyes, steady jaw. At noon, she slipped outside to the delivery alley with a small slice of bread and a bottle of water. She sat on a crate. Her fingers trembled as she unwrapped lunch, but her back stayed straight. Nora would be waking soon, leaving for school with shoes they'd polished last night. Rent was due. Life did not pause. A man in a cap and sunglasses drifted past the hotel's side entrance, scrolling his phone. Elijah didn't break stride, but he watched her from the reflection in the glass. How she ate carefully. How she checked her phone twice for missed calls. Strong, quiet, unhelped. A plan began to shape itself. Morning brought the thin sunlight of an apologetic sky. Amira opened her locker and paused. A small paper bag sat inside, new nitrile gloves, a wrapped breakfast sandwich still warm, a folded note, for the girl who works with grace, even when the world is unkind. She looked around. No one watched. She ate half the sandwich standing there, heat returning to hands that had been shaking since dawn. It wasn't much. It was everything. In a conference room overlooking the river, Elijah reviewed a security partnership feed he had legitimate access to through Cole Estates. He watched Amira's face soften with surprise, then gratitude. "Good," he said softly. "Small steps." Veronica strutted through a midday talk show, perfuming the air with charm and edit-ready quips. Once the cameras cut, she peeled off her smile like a sticker. "This lighting's tragic," she muttered. "Replace it." Casey scribbled, already overloaded. By afternoon, Amira was back on the lobby route, aligning tulips and glass like a spell against chaos. A group of influencers breezed past, trailing perfume and laughter. One bumped her bucket. She caught it without a splash. Mr. Harris didn't see. Life rarely applauds balance. But somewhere a pair of eyes noticed, and planned the next kindness. "Davich," Mr. Harris called, reading from a tablet. "Report to the VIP floor tomorrow. Night prep, revised pay grade." Amira blinked. "Sir, I didn't apply." "It's approved. Don't argue your own good fortune," he said, already moving on. When she stepped into the hallway, whispers met her like cold air. "VIP for her?" someone muttered. "She must know someone," another said. A co-worker named Tina smiled without warmth. "Congrats," she sang. "Some of us mopped for years to reach that level." Amira kept her eyes forward. Gratitude, silence. The new assignment meant fewer messes and a little more salary. It meant Nora's field trip fee wouldn't need a miracle. Elijah, across town, stood in the corner of a minimalist cafe where no one expected a billionaire to be ordinary. He listened while a property manager briefed him on Granville Towers' staffing updates. "The reassignment you requested happened," the manager said. "Discreetly. She hasn't connected any dots." "Good," Elijah replied. "Let her dignity stay intact. She earns her steps." That night, Amira shined a row of brass numerals until they gleamed like small suns. She caught her reflection again. Tired, yes, but standing a little taller. For the first time in months, the elevator doors closed on a smile she didn't force. The VIP floor breathed a different air. Softer carpets, fresh lilies, distant piano. Amira learned the map quickly. Suites with skylines instead of ceilings, hushed corridors that swallowed voices. She cleaned like a caretaker, not a ghost. Edges crisp, surfaces quiet. When she opened her locker after shift, there was a small bouquet. Nothing extravagant, just freesias and a sprig of rosemary. No note this time. Her lungs filled as if the flowers carried air from somewhere kinder. "Someone's got a fan," Tina murmured as she changed nearby, eyes sharp with curiosity. "Must be nice. Maybe they admire clean baseboards," Amira said lightly, closing her locker. Humor as shield, gratitude as armor. Elijah visited Granville in unremarkable clothes, sunglasses tucked into his collar, posture unassuming. He watched her from a lounge where businessmen pretended not to be lonely. She greeted a frazzled guest with the same courtesy she gave the quiet morning sun. No performance, no angle. Veronica's assistant slid a plain envelope across a marble counter. Inside, a printed still, her white SUV, water arcing, a figure flinching, a sticky note in block letters. "Not everyone forgets." Veronica's spine chilled. She tore the note and dropped it into a crystal bin. "Old news," she said out loud to no one. But the words didn't warm the room. Resentment has a scent, like sugar burning. Tina moved through the supply closet with practiced ease, scanning labels until she found the clear bottle identical to Amira's floor solution. She unsealed it and swapped in a slicker formula, one that left a film just invisible enough to be dangerous. Morning. The lobby hummed. A guest in designer boots stepped onto the marble, slid, windmilled, caught himself against the concierge stand. "Who cleaned this?" the manager barked. Heads turned toward Amira's cart. She stood straighter, cheeks flushing. "I did, but I used the standard office now." Inside the small glass box that passed for HR fairness, Mr. Harris folded his hands. "One more incident like this, and you're gone." "I didn't change the solution," Amira said, voice tight. "Check the dismissed." She walked out with a white pulse in her ears. The lobby had never felt so loud. On a balcony above, a man set down a newspaper very carefully. Elijah's jaw worked once. "Pull the corridor footage from Ur6-08, Uero," he told the building security chief over the phone. "You'll find what you need in the supply closet aisle." By noon, a knock. "Amira," Mr. Harris said, face smaller. "You're cleared. There was an error." Tina's locker stood open, a pink slip folded like a quiet warning. By late afternoon, Amira was arranging white tulips in a lobby vase when a familiar voice brushed the air behind her. "Excuse me," the man said. "Do you know where the Sky Lounge is?" She turned. Cap, sunglasses, the polite curiosity she'd escorted before. "I can show you," she offered, starting down the corridor at an easy pace. They walked. "How long have you worked here?" he asked. "Almost 2 years," she said. "It pays the bills. Do you enjoy it?" She smiled, honest. "I don't know that anyone dreams of mopping floors, but I like making spaces feel kinder. And I'm grateful." They reached the elevator. He paused, removing his sunglasses. The lobby's reflected light found the angles of a face she'd seen on business magazines behind a cashier's glass. "I'm Elijah Cole," he said simply. "Cole Estates. Our group helps oversee Granville." Her breath caught. Silence flickered, then steadied. You. Just Elijah," he said, softer than the title. "And I've watched how you work. Not the tasks, the grace." Amira swallowed. "I just try to do my best. That's rarer than it should be." The elevator chimed. He didn't step inside. "If you could study anything, what would it be?" he asked. "Hospitality management," she said before doubt could stop her. "To make places like this feel human. The internet doesn't whisper. It roars." A grainy photo of a white SUV in a muddy arc found its way onto a popular city forum, captioned, "Some people think wealthy races manners." Faces weren't clear, but connections were quick. Comments bloomed, some cutting, some kind. Veronica stared at her phone, throat tight. "Who's pushing this nonsense?" she demanded. Casey hesitated. "It's spreading organically." "Nothing spreads organically. Buy the narrative back," Veronica snapped. "Or plant a new one." At Granville, a brief staff meeting sparked a ripple of applause for Amira's cleared record. Mr. Harris's voice softened half a degree. "Good work on the VIP suites," he said, already scanning to the next item. A few colleagues nodded to Amira in the hall. Small kindnesses, belated. Tina was suspended for 2 weeks. Amira held no grudge, but she held the lesson. Keep your cart locked, your head high, your heart unbittered. That evening, Elijah's driver waited while he walked the block alone. He and the city understood each other best on foot. He stopped at a florist who didn't keep a social feed and didn't ask for selfies. "Freesias," he said. "And rosemary." He penned only a date on the card this time. No words. Some truths were better felt than read. Amira's break room smelled like disinfectant and stale coffee. On the table sat a folder with her name. Inside, a letter on Cole Foundation letterhead. Full scholarship for hospitality management, evening track, tuition, and materials covered. Part-time employment at Granville to continue. Hours adjusted to support classes. Her hands trembled. Her eyes wet. She read it twice to be sure it still existed the second time. "Why me?" she asked later, voice hardly above the hum of the lobby. "Because you never ask," Elijah said, meeting her at a quiet corner near the winter garden. "And because you do more than your job. You make rooms gentler." She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath all year. "Thank you." Across the atrium, Veronica watched from behind a column, a camera phone lowered just enough to pretend she wasn't recording. The sight punched something she didn't recognize. Was it envy? Or the aching truth that admiration lived where she couldn't buy it? That night, Amira told Nora, they sat on a thrifted sofa, knees touching, city noise stitching the quiet between words. "You're going to school?" Nora gasped. Amira nodded, laughing and crying at once. "We're going to school," she said. "Because when I step forward, you come with me. Some blogs will print anything for a fee." An account no one had heard of yesterday posted that Amira had planned the mud incident to catch Elijah's attention, that she was dating for dollars. The story spread like spilled ink. Amira found it during lunch and felt the ground tilt. Eyes pricked, hands went cold. In the hall, a few co-workers went quiet when she approached. A guest scrolled, glanced at her, and scrolled again as if decency were heavy. Elijah didn't wait this time. He called a press briefing. Cameras flashed, hungry. He kept his voice low and clear. "Amira Davich is not a gold digger. She is the most diligent, honest professional I've met in years. If anyone believes otherwise, they should ask what they value more, money or character." Or the room quieted in a way microphones can't measure. At home, a knock, a delivery. A single red rose, a handwritten note. "Let the world whisper." "I'll speak your truth." Amira pressed the card to her chest and let herself cry until the ache washed clean. Veronica's father summoned her. "We traced the smear to your PR burner," he said, voice like shut doors. "Accounts frozen, board privileges suspended. Learn respect, Veronica. Then we'll talk." The elevator doors closed on her reflection. Flawless. Frightened. The rooftop garden at Granville looked like a small, stubborn summer against winter's edge. City lights wove a net of gold below. Elijah handed Amira a cup of hot cocoa. Steam curled into the cold. "I'm overwhelmed," she admitted, eyes on the skyline. "It feels unreal." "You earned it," he said, "every piece. I used to think people like you didn't see people like me." "I didn't always," he confessed. "My mother raised me alone. She cleaned offices at night. She taught me the quiet art of making a place kinder than you found it. Somewhere along the climb, I learned to forget what lifted me. Watching you reminded me." She turned, surprised by the softness in his confession. The wind tugged at a strand of her hair. He didn't reach to fix it, and somehow, that felt like respect. "Tell me what you want your days to feel like," he said. "Useful," she said, "and honestly seen." "Then that's where we're headed." They sat without rushing the moment into definitions. Below them, traffic stitched and unstitched the river of light. Above them, a plane traced a quiet promise across the sky. Between, two people warmed their hands on cocoa and something gentler than luck. Saturday sunlight found the small apartment kindly. Nora spread school books across the coffee table, drawing a messy heart around the word future in a workbook margin. "When you graduate, will we live in a place with a balcony?" she asked. "Balconies are statistically likely." Amira smiled, pouring tea. "Plants are inevitable." Nora sobered. "People at school say rich men use poor girls. Are you safe?" Amira sat beside her. Elijah's not using me. He sees me. And he's careful with what he touches." She hesitated. "But I'm careful too. We'll move slowly." Nora nodded as if stamping the plan with approval. "I like him for you." They shopped for second-hand textbooks and a new pen that felt like a wand. On the walk home, Amira looked up at Granville's glass flanks, catching afternoon light. For the first time, it didn't dwarf her. It glittered like a place she could someday run with grace. Cross town, Veronica stared at a bank app that no longer bloomed. Silence echoed in her penthouse like a lesson. She reached for her phone, thumb hovered over Elijah's contact, and then set it down. Apologies are heavier than handbags. Elijah kept it simple. A quiet bistro with checkered linens and a rooftop view. No photographers tipped, no convoy. He arrived on foot. Amira wore a navy dress that borrowed elegance from simplicity. The host seated them at dusk. The city blushed and then glittered. "I don't owe you my story," Elijah said, "but I want to offer it." He told her about the boy who slept under a reception desk while his mother vacuumed conference rooms, the teenager who promised he'd build something big enough to lift others, the man who accidentally built walls higher than welcome. Amira didn't interrupt. When he finished, she blew on her soup and said, "Thank you. For honesty." Then she offered pieces of her own. The year after their mother died, the late-night panic when the rent almost didn't clear, the way Nora's laugh turned fear into fuel. They didn't barter trauma. They traded truths like anchors. On the walk back, they reached the corner where a white SUV had made mud into humiliation. Traffic swished by, harmless tonight. "This is where it began," Elijah said. Amira looked down at the darkened asphalt. "She splashed mud on me," she said, voice steady. "But you planted a seed, and now you're growing past us all," he replied. A local culture blog ran the headline, "From Mud to Merit, the cleaner who changed a billionaire's mind." The piece was gentle, well-sourced, and quick to center Amira's work rather than Elijah's wallet. It spread like a good rumor. At Granville's monthly staff meeting, the general manager announced, "The Cole Foundation has expanded scholarships to include 2 additional evening staff per term." The room murmured approval. He handed Amira a small certificate, recognizing exceptional service. A modest thing. It mattered. Veronica watched the clip online, sound off, mouth set. Casey hovered in the doorway, unsure whether to speak. "Say it." Veronica sighed. "You could apologize," Casey ventured. Veronica stared out at the river. "Apologies without repair are branding," she said. "Repair requires consequences." Her own, she meant. She wasn't ready to carry them to their end. That evening, Amira and Nora taped the certificate on the fridge with floral washi tape. "It's crooked," Nora observed, then grinned. "Perfect." Elijah texted, "Proud of you. No cameras needed." Amira typed, deleted, then settled on, "Thank you for seeing what was already there." Somewhere in that simple exchange, a certainty settled, whether or not they named it yet. Veronica's father didn't shout. He signed documents. "Board suspension stands," he told her in a meeting room that smelled like lemon oil and endings. "Accounts remain frozen pending ethics review. You are brilliant. But brilliance without humility is expensive." She held her posture like a statue. Statues don't win arguments. When she left, the corridor seemed longer than before. An apology sat in her throat, like a stone she wasn't ready to swallow. Amira, meanwhile, began classes. Lecture halls hummed with ambition and caffeine. She sat in the second row, notes neat, questions brave. A professor paused mid-sentence to say, "Ms. Davich, your eye for guest flow is excellent." The compliment felt like a door unlocking. Back at Granville, a guest complained about a draft near the winter garden. Amira repositioned seating, warmed the space with lamps, and spoke with engineering. The guest left a comment card. Whoever fixed the breeze also fixed my mood. Small wins, braided into a larger rope. Elijah reviewed weekly updates, smiled at the comment card, and closed his laptop. He'd decided something. He would never make Amira feel bought. He would make sure she was backed, and then step aside enough for her to lead. Lab days meant practice suites, fake check-ins, real logistics. Amira diagrammed guest flow, sketched a first 5 minutes ritual, and added a tea cart idea that traveled with the concierge during evening hours. Warmth on wheels, she said, half joking. The class loved it. The professor circled the phrase. Hospitality is choreography, he said. You have rhythm. At work, she piloted a tiny version. A tray, 2 teas, 1 cocoa. A jet-lagged couple arrived cranky and departed smiling. Mr. Harris noticed. Keep doing whatever you're doing, he muttered, which in Mr. Harris speak was a sonnet. Nora built a corkboard schedule at home. School, study, plants, dance breaks. She taped a packet of basil seeds next to it. For the balcony we're statistically getting, she said, chin high. Elijah skipped a gala, choosing instead to walk Nora and Amira to a corner bookstore with a creaky floor and a cat named Ledger. He bought Nora a mystery novel and bought Amira nothing, on purpose. She picked a used hospitality text, paid in worn bills, and left grinning like she'd bought a city. Sometimes power is knowing when not to spend. Grandville's 20th anniversary gala transformed the ballroom into a constellation of chandeliers. Live strings stitched the air. The city's power lineup arrived in tuxedos and gowns that whispered when they moved. Amira wore sky blue, simple, well-cut, unbranded. As she entered, the head of operations greeted her like a colleague, not a cautionary tale. Eyes followed for reasons that felt less like gossip and more like recognition. Midway through the evening, the director stepped to the microphone. Tonight, we honor staff who embody hospitality's heart. He called Amira's name. Applause rose, not polite but warm. Elijah didn't move toward the stage. He stayed back, hands in pockets, watching her claim the light alone. At the mic, she breathed once, twice. "A year ago," she said, "I was a girl in worn shoes with rain in my hem and mud on my sleeves. I felt invisible, until one act of cruelty and one act of kindness changed everything. I'm not here because of luck. I'm here because I kept going, and because someone believed in me before I could believe in myself." She glanced toward the back of the room, where a man's posture answered without words. "Kindness," she finished, "is louder than status." The room exhaled together. The penthouse felt smaller with the lights off. Veronica stood at her window and watched boats drag white threads across the river. She had a drafted statement open on her laptop, an apology stitched by a PR firm that didn't know the shape of her voice. She closed it. She wrote a new paragraph. "To the woman I humiliated. I'm sorry. I'll pay for the damage I did. To your clothes that day. To your dignity in the days after. I will also fund scholarships for night shift staff I never used to see. This won't fix it. It can begin to repair it." She didn't send it. Not yet. But for the first time, the apology wasn't an accessory. It was a threshold. Amira and Nora, meanwhile, ate late pizza on the living room floor, certificate still crooked on the fridge. They laughed about the basil seeds and argued cheerfully about where a future tea cart should park in their future lobby. When the dishes were done, Amira stepped onto the fire escape and let the night air salt her hair. Her phone chimed. "Proud of your speech. Keep writing your own lights. Only because you turned a switch I couldn't reach." Across town, a white SUV sat in a garage, suddenly very quiet. Morning washed the city in a forgiving glow. Amira and Elijah met at the corner where a puddle used to wait like a trap. The road had been repaved, smooth, dark, new. Cars whisked by, splashing nothing on no one. Amira slipped off her flats and set them on the curb. The asphalt felt cool and honest. Elijah watched, confused and charmed. "What are you doing?" "Leaving the last trace of who I used to be," she said, stepping forward. "And walking into who I am now." He nodded to her and to the street, and to the boy who once slept under desks, while a cleaner mother made the world tidy enough to hold him. He removed his shoes too, and joined her, barefoot, equal, proud. They didn't kiss. They didn't pose. They simply walked, two silhouettes moving through a city that had learned a little more about kindness because a cruel laugh had rippled the wrong way one gray morning. Some stories end with fireworks. This one ended with footsteps. Steady, quiet, certain. The kind that turn mud into soil. The kind that make room for roots. The kind that bloom so brightly that, for once, the whole world stops to notice. If this story moved you, share it with someone, and subscribe for more stories. Maybe your 5 minutes of listening will impact a life, possibly your own.